Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. There has been an interesting statistic laid bare, and that is that if the current rate at which hate crimes are being reported to the police Scotland will have to deal with more than 1 million hate crime complaints a year. They will be spending virtually all day, every day, dealing with hate crimes in order to get through this backlog. And it's only going to grow because obviously we need to keep pushing these hate crimes onto the police. We need to keep doing it. We have to keep pushing it. We have to show that the police are completely overwhelmed by this iniquitous piece of legislation. This awful legislation, I suppose, brought in by a complete and utter moron. And so if we can do that, if we can show that Humza Yousaf itself is going to be humiliated by having his flagship hate crime bill reversed because the police can't cope, because they are forced by the law itself to investigate, record and report on every single case, then it will be a victory. A victory for common sense. A victory for decency. Because ultimately, of course, we all know that this is not a hate crime bill. It's a blasphemy bill. And that must always be resisted. Let's take a look to see why the police are completely overwhelmed. Here goes. So Humza Yousaf's hate crime bill could lead to more than 1 million complaints a year for hard-pressed cops to chase. Now, there's only about 15,000 odd policemen in Scotland, and if you assume with time off, with the shift system and so forth, that only about, well, let's say over half, because you're going to get more on the 2-day shifts than the evening shift. But let's just say something like 7,000 police per shift. So any time there's about 7,000 police on duty. That means that at any time only 7,000 police can deal with a million complaints. Now that is just astonishing, isn't it? Because it means that basically 1,000 complaints for 7 officers. For every 7 officers have to deal with 1,000 complaints. A seventh of 1,000 is what? 140 for the nearest sort of whole. So all day, every officer has to deal with 140 hate complaints. And if you say 10 minutes, well, there's not enough hours in the day. There is not enough hours in the day for Police Scotland, the whole of Police Scotland, to deal with these complaints. And so what's going to happen? Well, no other crimes are going to be investigated. Nothing is happening. Police are investigating every hate crime every day, and that's all they're doing. There is now officially no police in Scotland. What you have got is an army of effectively civil servants dealing with hate crimes. Perceived, not actual. Because obviously it's very hard to say and define what hate is. The bill doesn't do it. Neither does the old bill. Anyway, Humza Yousaf's hate crime bill could lead to more than 1 million complaints a year for hard-pressed cops to chase. The Scottish Tories have claimed that at the current rate of hate crime complaints, Police Scotland will be forced to deal with over 1 million in a year, which is more than double the amount of actual crimes reported in the country last year. And so they're overwhelmed, and that's why we're going to win. There will be no way they can deal with this. So you've got to keep complaining all the time. Push, push, push. And every time any politician says anything, it's a hate crime, report it. The police will be forced to investigate, and they will give these people phone calls. Police Scotland could be inundated with more than 1 million hate crime complaints in just a year, it has been claimed, with hard-pressed cops being forced to chase every single one of them. The estimation was cited by the Scottish Tories as they look set to launch a petition for the law to be repealed. I can guarantee you now, if they put that petition out, every single policeman in Scotland would sign it. It's understood that more than 3,000 reports were made to cops on the first day of the new legislation being put in place. And in fact, we know now, subsequently to this report, because this is like from yesterday, that it was actually over 4,000 in the end on the first day. This included numerous complaints about J.K. Rowling's social media post and Humza Yousaf's 2020 Holyrood speech about racial injustice. The Scottish Government were repeatedly warned that the new law would lead to vexatious complaints being made against public figures. There is no such thing, according to this law, as a vexatious complaint, because it defines hate as being what the person recording it perceives. Therefore, it is not vexatious. It is experiential. There is no definition of hate within it, and therefore there can be no vexatious complaints. In the recently unearthed financial memorandum for the 2021 Act, officials claimed that the new offences may result in more incidents being reported. However, these numbers are likely to be limited. Yes, to 1 million a year. This has not been the case, with only about half of the complaints being looked into so far. Well, they do have a time limit according to the Act, so they better pull their finger out or hire more policemen. The law creates a new crime relating to age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, or being intersex, but not actual sex. These protected characteristics have been added to the stirring up hatred portion of the Act, which means it's an offence. An offence is committed if someone communicates material or behaves in a threatening or abusive manner towards them. Advertising campaigns were launched by both the government and the police, urging Scots to make complaints even if they have witnessed or been the target of an alleged hate crime. And it can even be reported anonymously. And there's the hate crime monster, which the police themselves said was targeting young white males aged 18 to 30, which is in and of itself a hate crime. Good job, police. It's almost as though you haven't got a clue. Anyway, now the Scottish Tories have calculated that if the current rate of 3,800 complaints being made every 24 hours is kept up, then 1.4 million reports could be made within a year. This is more than four times higher than the total number of real crimes, 300,000, recorded in Scotland last year. The party is set to launch a petition urging the government to repeal the Act, with Shadow Justice Secretary Russell Findlay claiming it is the biggest ever burden placed on Scotland's police force ever. He added that the flawed legislation is being weaponised by activists, but also now by us. We are weaponising it too, but we're weaponising it not against individuals, but against the politicians themselves. And it's the only way forward. Make them pay. Make them have to answer to everything. Make them get investigated time and time again till they eventually get fed up with it. And not one of them. All parties. Let's not just pick on the SNP here, because remember, Labour signed off on this. The only people who didn't sign off on it, in fact, were the Tories. Weirdly. But Labour signed, so anything Anna Sawar says, anything Jackie Bailey says, no, don't get me wrong, I like Jackie Bailey, but she may open her mouth. She went along with it. She voted for this Act. Let's not forget that. Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling goaded the police to investigate her when she called a number of trans activist men in a social media post, and was subjected to dozens of complaints which were looked into, but no action was taken. Because to take action against that would mean to say that your truth was illegal. And I don't think that the police are willing to go down that route of saying truth is illegal. That's way, way too Orwellian. I think somebody's had to have had a word there. Anyway, Mr. Findlay said, Humza Yousaf's Dangerous Hate Crime Act is already being weaponised on an industrial scale by thin-skinned troublemakers, which is placing the biggest ever burden on Scottish police officers. And within 24 hours of it coming into force, Police Scotland has been inundated with complaints, many of them spurious nonsense from activists with an axe to grind. At this rate, the number of hate complaints will overtake the number of real crimes that are recorded each year, and hard-working officers want to protect our communities, not waste precious time investigating every perceived hate crime. But we must continue to do it. It's the only way to beat this Act. It's the only way for this Act to be repealed. And so we have to do this to the police. Any police, I do apologise. I mean, honestly, I know you don't want it. But you understand that the only way we can beat this Act is to obey this Act. Malicious compliance, it's called. And let us comply with the law and complain about hate time and time again. because you can perceive whatever hate you like. The decision on whether it's hateful or not is laid with us, not within the definition of the law. The Scottish Conservatives warned that this would be disaster for the police and have a chilling effect on free speech, and that's why we're launching a petition to give the people of Scotland the chance to send a message to Humza Yousaf and the SNP and tell them to repeal this law. Now, of course, Humza Yousaf came out the other day and said, "Oh, we're never going to repeal this law. This isn't going the same way as the football law. Oh, no, no, no." Well, I've got news for you, Humza. You're going to be humiliated, because yes, it is. A Scottish Government spokesperson said the Hate Crime Act will help tackle the harm caused by hatred and prejudice, and we don't believe a word of it, because all it is a blasphemy law. We all know this. It's blasphemy against Islam is the only reason for it existing. Well, screw you, Humza Yousaf. Screw your weird religion. Screw it all, because it's not needed, it's not wanted, and it is going to be ultimately damaging for Scotland. And that is why it's going to be repealed, whether you like it or not. Your days are numbered, and so are the days of this bill coming up. We can win. We're going to win. We are many, they are few. We all just complain, and eventually this law goes away. But 1.4 million investigations a year just on hate crimes. The police can't cope. They cannot cope. They haven't got a hope in hell of coping. And that's why it all breaks down. And that, of course, is when we win, which we will. The trouble is, you have a moron in the form of Humza Yousaf who thinks he's cleverer than he actually is. And he really isn't at all. He lacks the ability to see the consequences of his actions. He doesn't understand that people look at things in a different way from him, and people reject his policies of hatred and division. And they certainly don't want a blasphemy law brought in through the back door. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.